I'm going to introduce our next speaker to you. Rod Staples, he leads the team that is delivering one of the biggest infrastructure programs in Australia that is going to really transform Sydney. The Sydney Metro Northwest from Rouse Hill to Chatswood. This is the first stage. He's going to tell us about. He's been an engineer growing up in Sydney South, and he's worked across infrastructure planning for nearly 2 decades. So probably since you're about 8 when you were building Lego blocks, it sounds like. And he also told me in confidence that his favourite hobby is actually something that you would probably not imagine him doing, but I can see you doing this. He's a water skier. So without any further ado, I am going to hand over to Rod Staples to share more about what is happening with the Metro. Please join me in welcoming Rod to the stage. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and firstly, thanks, Amanda, for the opportunity to come along tonight, and congratulations on the speaker list. I'd have to say each one of those had some relevance to what I'm talking about tonight. Firstly, your local member, Gladys Berejiklian, when she was Minister for Transport, was the one that took a risk 5 years ago and put me in this role to give me an opportunity to have a crack at helping deliver what was North West Rail Link at the time, what's evolved into the Sydney Metro program. And then I think Narelle, appreciate the slide there in terms of Go Metro and the support around that. And also, look, what Deborah's been talking about tonight is absolutely critical for you and the local communities broadly along the Metro corridor to make the most of what it is that we're doing with this. The infrastructure is one thing, but making the places around them is absolutely critical, and we've really been enjoying working with the Greater Sydney Commission since they've come on board. I've met with a few of you over the time as we've been engaging with you, looking at the development of the project. If I haven't, certainly my team may have met with you through information sessions or various engagements along the way, so I'm assuming some of you will know a little bit about the project or the program and the projects that I'm working on. First thing I want to touch on, water skiing is one of my hobbies. The other one is history. I love a good read about history. And top right corner, picture of someone riveting the Harbour Bridge. My grandfather was one of those. He worked on the southern arch of the bridge. I am from the south, so I have to declare I'm not from the North Shore. And if I'd been able to work out the text, you'd have found out I lived further south in Cogra. But great sort of history in my family. And while I didn't know my grandfather because he died quite young, and probably because he worked so hard on the bridge, but my father really carried that with great pride, and we had lots of books around construction of infrastructure and so forth as a kid, and that set an agenda for me, and I think set me on the career that I now do. A couple of things about this image in particular I want to signal to you. One is obviously the bridge is not finished, but there's a ferry going underneath the bridge and the deck is getting built. The ferry was the only way to get from this area into the city, and really the connection at that time. So I imagine what it would be like for people in that ferry, thinking about the deck getting built and what it would be like for their life and how a significant change it could make for them when that deck is finished and they can travel on the train or in a car as they're emerging and so forth in that time. So there's a real symbol to me in terms of the significance of that picture and the hope and the opportunity. I also wonder whether they could think forward as far as they are today and what the North Shore looks like now and how much of a profound impact the bridge actually had on the people of the North Shore. The challenge I've set to my team is that we want the legacy of Sydney Metro to be as well regarded as what the legacy is of the Sydney Harbour Bridge for an area like this going forward. Now that's a pretty high watermark, but we're really, really pushing hard to make the most of that. I think historically, if there is one criticism of the bridge and the construction, was that it was highly impactful on the local communities in and around it at the time. There was a different sort of mindset and culture at the time. The big thing for us is to actually make the most of modern technology and to make it as low impact as we possibly can in the communities that we go in and construct, and we're still learning our way on that. Sydney Metro, just at a high level, I won't labour on this for too long, 66 kilometres. By the time we're finished in 2024, trains will run from out past Rouse Hill all the way through this area and out to Bankstown. Metro, which I'll talk a little bit more about what that actually means, a train every few minutes essentially running back and forth, so you can just turn up and go at any one of those stations Every train does exactly the same thing. Forget about timetables. Just get in, get on with your trip. Frequency, reliability, world class. Very simple system because it's self-contained and doesn't get caught up in the tangle of, unfortunately, what we've got as a historic rail network as it stands today. But lots of connection with our transport network, lots of connection with the places that it goes along there, and that's one of the challenges we've got to make absolutely the most of. The green is Northwest. That will open in 2019, and that comes into Chatswood, so it certainly touches into this community, so you know about that. And the rest of it will open in 2024, when that'll bring a profound sort of increase in capacity across the whole area. You'll see in the North Shore area, Chatswood Station, we're servicing the existing Chatswood Station, but we've got a new station going in at Crow's Nest and a new station going in at what we call Victoria Cross, which is in the northern part of the North Sydney CBD. In terms of metro, one thing I'd say is we've got a fantastic rail system at the moment that's serviced a well spread out city that's developed over the last century since the Harbour Bridge was built and the network was electrified. But metro is something that's a very proven concept around the world, but only really just being brought to Sydney now. And the really critical thing is what I was talking about before is just a very simple turn up and go service. There's lots of applications from 100-year-old systems where the technologies are quite different through to very modern systems. We're taking the opportunity to bring modern systems in here which will bring enormous reliability. Things like full automation. If you're a bit of a train buff, you can stand at the front of the train and pretend you're the driver. But that brings enormous reliability and safety beyond what we've got here in our current systems. More capacity. The accessibility question is a big one for local communities, and pretty much anyone with a disability will be able to move onto this system from the street, through the station, onto the train, move to any area of the train whatsoever without any trouble whatsoever. A whole series of CCTV coverage, so there's no point on the network where people haven't got the ability to see you and keep you safe through various video help points and so forth as well. So lots of modern facilities coming with it. Northwest, a huge amount of construction been going on for the last 3 years. The tunnelling is already done. The SkyTrain is in construction. We've had a couple of visible problems with that in recent times, but we're still getting on with the job of getting that finished. We're into the space of building a new depot out in northwest Sydney as well, so that we can bring trains in later next year, and we'll start to go into testing commissioning to be ready for 2019. I won't labour more on that. I think the one thing I want to say is a big lesson for us as a team is early engagement with key community and stakeholders and ongoing conversation, and making sure that we've got good relationships established along the way as we manage the construction, because construction impact is there. I won't gloss over it. There's no question at all that we do impact local communities. We work hard to minimise that. But the important thing is to keep the conversation going when some issues arise. We see what we can do to address that. Northwest community have been fantastic in embracing the concept and working with us along the way to make the most of it. City and Southwest project, which is from Chatswood through, it's got a longer time frame development around it. And I'll just focus in particularly in the area that is relevant for this group between essentially Chatswood and Blues Point sort of area where we're completely in tunnel. So from Chatswood through to Sydney, the entire line will be brand new and in tunnel going underneath the harbour rather than the bridge that was built a little under 100 years ago. Critically, there's lots of engineering challenges in building that, and our main objective here is to get underground and stay underground for as long as possible during the construction phase, and to keep out of your way as much as we possibly can during this next 6 to 7 years of major construction activity. Things will start to happen from next year in the city. We've got some demolition, and in North Sydney we'll have some demolition of buildings starting, so you will start to see things in the not too distant future, and you will have seen some of that information coming out. We've worked hard to try and minimise impact. The initial concept when we picked it up a couple of years ago actually had a lot of major work on the North Shore line between Chatswood and St Leonards, rather than being in tunnel. It actually had some significant impacts on our Artarmon Town Centre, so we ended up working up a solution which put the railway underground more quickly and avoided quite a bit of impact. But that's not to say that there will therefore be no impact. There will still be significant impact along the way. A few of the highlights: the Epping to Chatswood line needing to be closed for a period of time in late 2018, early 2019, so that we can upgrade that for fully automated trains. That will come very, very quickly. Chatswood itself, we're looking at a new construction site for tunnelling operations to happen in that area in around Mowbray Road space, so that's a significant activity with truck actions going in and around that and noise for a period of time, but ultimately all covered back up again and sort of return back to its sort of current state, or a new development put in there with some good community facility. Coming further south, a new station at Crow's Nest, adjacent to Pacific Highway, a new station in Victoria Cross. So both of those are going to involve construction activity for the stations themselves. And then down at Blues Point on the foreshore to help support our tunnelling activity across the harbour. We've got a construction site within a park down there at Blues Point. We've moved most of the construction activity for that tunnelling actually over towards the Barangaroo side to minimise the impact in that Blues Point area, because it's a very constrained space. My message to you is that we well and truly acknowledge that there's some impacts to be had along the way in that space, and they're not always just at the station locations. We are looking from early next year to be putting new power cabling through Artarmon, for example, and there's local community impacts to manage through in and around that. But that's all about giving long-term power supply to the railway so that it can operate with high reliability going forward. Beyond the construction, one of the things that we've taken very seriously at Metro, because it is such a large project, is to make sure that our legacy is not just about a fantastic train service that people look back on and say really helped the community in the long term in terms of the way they think and operate within their area, but to make sure we make the most of the investment. We've done a lot with workforce in the construction industry to skill up. Given the amount of spend that's going on, we see a huge benefit in a more qualified workforce. So we've had over 1,000 people now qualified to work in and around tunnels, for example. And given the amount of tunnelling that's foreshadowed over the next couple of decades, that's a really critical thing for the state. We've got large pre-apprenticeship programs focused on Indigenous, long-term unemployed and so forth, and looking to bring those in and train them up. And that's been going on in the Northwest for the last couple of years. We've got school education programs where we've got curriculum-based things that have been put in and around the projects to help school kids understand the impact of these projects and some of the broader economic and social things that sit in and around them. Teachers, we've got about 150 teachers who have been through the program and are now out there in the classrooms talking to them about the projects, and the projects there is a live example for them to visit every day. Probably one that's very relevant is Transport for New South Wales. We want to lead by example in terms of raising the bar with truck safety. So over the last 20 or 30 years, construction industry has been very focused on making it safe within sites, but there's been less focus around how trucks move through a community area and do that safely. So we're looking to raise the bar, greater standards, greater driver education. We're looking at training drivers through video and animation first, through 3D goggles. They have to drive the routes and know all of the risk areas first before they're allowed to go and actually do a driving through a route, for example. So looking to new innovations and new technologies that we can bring to the fore and drive more deeply into the broader construction industry. And that's something we're treating really seriously, not high cost, but really high value and high return for the community. I guess my last piece to this group particularly is that this is, I believe, and I certainly think when you see what Deborah brings forward from the Greater Sydney Commission, this is a massive opportunity for the North Shore area. It's a massive opportunity for the Northwest, the North Shore, the Sydney CBD and the Bankstown sort of region in terms of what it will do for those communities long term. One of the things that I love most to do is to actually sit and think at a particular location what it means for individuals that live in and around there. It's very easy to get drawn up into the high level strategy around projects, but when you actually think about what it means for an individual in their day-to-day lives, you realise how profound the change is. If you're in Chatswood or North Sydney and you want to get to Martin Place, when this is finished, it's 15 to 20 minutes faster for you to get there than what it is today. It's essentially halving the travel time to get there, just as an illustration of the sort of change in accessibility. Not only that, but there'll be a train every couple of minutes doing that. So when you think about what it means for this region, we're putting some new stations in, so we're providing a greater footprint for people to be able to walk to mass public transport, but we're actually increasing your reach into not just the Sydney CBD, but back into the growing Macquarie area and into the Northwest area as well. So the opportunity for the North Shore, I think, is profound. I'm very confident that if we get it right and we do it really well, that the legacy we leave will be judged as well as the history that the Harbour Bridge has left as well for this region. But we know we've got a lot of work to do with you over the next 5 years to make sure we manage that journey to get it done and get it done very well. Conscious of time, so thanks very much.